If you ask the internet who is the most hated NASCAR driver in 2024, you'd expect to get responses like Denny Hamlin, Austin Dillon, or Joey Logano. But one name that seems to somehow be trumping them all right now is Corey LaJoie. Rewind only 2 years ago and Corey LaJoie was a fan favorite. He was a scrappy underdog standing his ground against the big name drivers and getting a lot of media attention despite being someone who runs at the back of the field. So here is the rise and the fall of Corey LaJoie. But before that, a quick word about a special offer from the Daily Downforce. NASCAR fans, with summer coming to a close, it's never too early to start thinking about the holiday season. And the Daily Downforce and Lionel Racing have you covered with a special holiday offer. This year's Advent calendar includes 12 1/64 scale diecasts, with 11 of them never being produced before. So it's a great gift for avid collectors and young children alike. Plus, when you use the code HOLIDAY at the Daily Downforce shop, then you get a free subscription to NASCAR Pole Position, a $30 value for free. Supplies are limited and last year's calendars went fast, so don't wait, click the link down below and get your Advent calendar pre-ordered today. Corey is the son of two-time Xfinity champion Randy LaJoie. But unlike many drivers born into a racing family, this didn't immediately get Corey rides with top-notch race teams. Instead, Corey has pretty much been the underdog for the entirety of his racing career, with his resume being topped with a win at Bowman Gray Stadium in the K&N series that happened more than 12 years ago. Point is, it's hard to gauge what Corey LaJoie is capable of, because the guy had never driven a car capable of running in the top 30 in any major series. Last week we talked about Ross Chastain being in a similar position, and he ended up being a Championship 4 contender. So why can't Corey do the same? His Cup career started at BK Racing, where he turned Reed Sorensen to make the field in the Daytona 500. Maybe we should have taken that as a warning sign. Reed Sorensen called Corey out for reckless driving, and Corey's response wasn't the greatest, saying, "If that was my mom, I'd probably spin her out to make the Daytona 500 too." That's usually not the go-to line when trying to deflect blame. He moved to TriStar Racing in 2018, which also shut down by the end of 2018. He then moved to Go Fast Racing in 2019, a tenure that was highlighted by his face in an Old Spice car, driving into Ryan Newman's window net at 200 miles per hour, and getting into a Twitter spat with Denny Hamlin that ultimately resulted in nothing. Maybe that's the lone reason why people liked Corey LaJoie, because at this point he had been nothing but a harbinger of death for every race team that he had ever gone to. But Corey stirred up some discussion with his Twitter beef with Old Dennis. Corey first tweeted that he was against doing professional iRacing as a substitution for real racing during the pandemic, stating that the service was unrealistic and promoted wrecks. Denny Hamlin responded by saying that he should like iRacing because it puts everyone on an equal playing field, and Corey has always complained about driving for underfunded teams when he believes he's a talented driver. The jabs kept coming when real racing resumed later in the year, as Corey posted his fitness stats following a brutally hot July Atlanta race. Denny responded with his own fitness stats, saying, "No wonder we can never count on you in the fourth quarter," referencing Hamlin's basketball league. Admittedly, Denny was kinda out of pocket for that one. Like, okay, maybe it was intended as a joke, but like, if you don't know Corey like that, then it just kinda seems rude. But where Corey starts digging his hole is with the next tweet, where he simply asks Denny, "Can we trade cars?" Once again pushing the narrative that Corey thinks he would automatically do great in a well-funded car. Denny pushes back against this, saying, "We could, but not sure you're gonna get the answers you're hoping for." Many people hated on Denny for this seemingly rude reply, but I don't think this one was too bad. Because Corey is also being disrespectful by implying that Denny is only as good as he is because he drives a top-tier race car, ignoring all the rest of Hamlin's body of work. Two wrongs don't make a right, but I think Denny had a right to be irked by Corey's reply. And Denny clarifies as much in his next tweet, where he says that what Corey is insinuating is that the car equals 100% of the performance, which is simply not true. Corey then goes on his podcast and makes fun of Denny for not winning a championship, coming from a guy with no championship, or even a win. Corey then claims on his next podcast that Denny texted him saying that he would wreck him, and at that point, NASCAR had to step in and break up the beef. In retrospect, Corey was not as innocent as many of us perceived him to be at the time. But because it was with public enemy number one Denny Hamlin, and Corey LaJoie's an underdog driver, 90% of the fan base at the time sided with Corey, and he gained a lot of notoriety from this. It was like Drake versus Hendrick, but if Hendrick was a YouTube rapper with 300 subscribers. Pretty much the only other highlight of 2020 was Corey sending in a letter to Rick Hendrick asking to be hired after Jimmy Johnson retired, so they hired Kyle Larson instead. In 2021, LaJoie makes what appears to be a lateral move to Spire Motorsports, who at the time was also a 35th place team on most weeks. 2021 is a relatively quiet year for LaJoie, but he explodes in popularity in 2022. where he nearly scored a clutch win in Atlanta before being blocked by Chase Elliott, and he even becomes one of the featured drivers in USA's Race for the Championship documentary, which only boosted his popularity to new heights. 2023 looked to be an even better year, as LaJoie stayed in the top 20 in points for a good portion of the season, a drastic improvement over the last 2 years at Spire. And finally, after years of yearning for it, Corey would get his golden opportunity. With Chase Elliott being suspended for the 2023 race at Gateway due to right-hooking Denny Hamlin, LaJoie was chosen as the replacement driver. Perhaps that letter written over 3 years ago did tug at Mr. H's heartstrings a bit. In the week leading up to the race, people were ecstatic for Corey. Well, maybe not Chase Elliott fans, but everybody else. This was a heartwarming story 3 years in the making, and Corey would finally get a chance to prove himself in top-tier equipment that he was waiting for. And he ran in the top 25 all day and finished 21st. Ouch. It also didn't help that Corey's replacement in the 7 car, Carson Hocevar, making his first ever Cup start, ran up towards the top 10 for most of the day until his brakes exploded. And just like that, it seems like the Corey LaJoie hype train lost a significant amount of steam. He had pushed this narrative that the car was what held his true potential back all these years, he got the car he wanted, and kinda stunk in it. Now, in Corey's defense, with the sole exception of Martinsville, Hendrick is not really known for running well on the flat tracks, and Gateway is statistically the team's worst racetrack. But the average NASCAR fan doesn't know statistics. They just know that Corey LaJoie got the 9 car and didn't do anything with it. And this seemed to disrupt Corey's momentum when he returned to Spire, as a string of bad finishes afterward led to him finishing 25th in the final points. And now, 2024 has been nothing short of an unequivocal disaster for Corey, finishing outside the top 20 in all but 11 races so far this year. He has fewer top 5s and as many top 10s as his rookie teammate Zane Smith, and his other rookie teammate Carson Hocevar has been running circles around him, sitting on the cusp of the top 20 in points this whole season. If you took Austin Hendrick and Harrison Burton out of the playoffs, he would be 19th right now, in a Spire car. And to be clear, this is where people sort of expect Spire to run now. They're not exactly the little team that could anymore. They've been spending tons of money to become a competitive team this season, and it seems to be working on all fronts. Except for Corey LaJoie. And even when Corey does have a decent run, you can't even celebrate it because he probably took out half the field in the process. Corey has been involved in as many wrecks as anybody this season, and he's probably triggered most of them. He flipped himself over trying to retaliate against Noah Gragson. Only this could happen to Corey LaJoie. And with him crashing your favorite driver almost every week, most people want him to stop stacking pennies and start stacking burgers. Because I'm not even sure if this guy should be driving an Uber in 2025. He's a menace out on the road. In a way, his story mirrors that of Matt DiBenedetto from a few years ago. Scrappy, underdog driver, finally gets decent equipment, doesn't win, the hype dissolves, and the fans turn against him. Although, Matty D was more for political reasons, and Corey is more just for being a bad driver. Some would say that the fanbase's disdain of Corey purely exists on Twitter and not in the real world, which I am tempted to believe because everybody hates everything on Twitter. But as someone who goes to maybe 6 or 7 Cup races a year, I can say that real-life support has also tapered off. He used to get massive cheers and driver intros for a backmarker, and now when they introduce him, nobody boos him, but nobody really cheers anymore either. And now, he can't really use the bad equipment is holding him back excuse. Hocevar and Smith are making that a much harder sell to the general fan base. And as a result, Corey just looks kinda mid. And I hate to say that, the guy just got his first top 10s at non-drafting tracks with Darlington and Watkins Glen, but ultimately, the bar has been raised. Those top 10s should have happened months ago. It just feels like Corey talks the talk, but doesn't really walk the walk. So what do you think? Does Corey LaJoie deserve all the hate, or do you feel bad for the guy? Let me know in the comments down below. But don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and check out dailydownforce.com for more awesome NASCAR content.